Welcome you to all to the Unit 5 Political and Legal Environmental Analysis of International Marketing Environment. So, in the previous section, we have discussed regarding the cultural and cultural environment, which has paramount importance because unless the marketer understands the cultural environment, it cannot design its marketing offerings so that it will not remain in the mind of the customers. For that reason, the marketer has to understand the socio and cultural aspects. Socio-cultural aspect includes the social structure, the education patterns, the values, the beliefs that exactly binds us to behave in a particular way. The marketer has to understand all the aspects. Sometimes what happens, even if you launch some products, the products gets failure because of misunderstanding of the cultures. There is no acceptance of the product in the market because of the because of not understanding the cultural aspects. So that is why we categorically discuss the different types. That is the culture, the how it shapes. We have come across with the cultural analysis. That then we have talked about the different cultural influence and business negotiations, how distance and exactly the space varies in different cultures. Then we have concluded with the marketer has to bring understand the cultural socio-cultural aspects to bring its products or offerings which suits to the particular culture. So today we are going to discuss on the political and legal environmental analysis. So when you talk about the political environmental analysis, here I just wanted to cite one example of recent happening. After the election win of Donald Trump, US President, the decisions he is taking is not affecting America only, it is also affecting the whole world. So that is why you must have noticed the pre-election and post-election impact on political changes on business conditions. So recently, yesterday, he has announced the 25% tariff for India. There is a huge discussion what is the impact of that tariff. So that is why as a marketer, since you are operating another country, you have to understand the political scenario of that particular country. For any firm involved in the marketing, the role of government influences its activities. Government may allow free and fair competition choosing the economic directions, but also the business has to understand the political scenario. When you talk about the political analysis environment, it includes the stability of the government, political stability, the government orientation and nationality. You talk about the stability of the government. When you talk about the stability of the government, we come across with two things. What are the things? One is the economic policy stability and the uncertain environment. If the government is a stable government, the policy of the government is remains stable. If the government is not a stable one, then what will happen? It will have some unstable, unfavorable attitude, unstable policies, economic policies, which is will impact your business. Second one is the government's orientations. The government orientation includes the ideological learning, the capitalism, socialism, and mixed economy, and also opening of India and China economy. So what exactly the ideology? If the government has an ideology or they have a favorable attitude towards the foreign companies, they will develop a policy to bring foreign companies to do their business. Let us take an example here. That is from the 1980s. Coca-Cola was trying to enter the Indian market from the 1980s. But what happens? Because during that period, the Janata Dal government was in power. That is why the Coca-Cola could not able to enter the market, able to market. They had to wait for another 4 or 5 years to enter the Indian market. So that is the government orientation towards the foreign policies, towards the foreign companies that also decides the survival or the entry of the foreign companies. Then last not the least is exactly we talk about nationality. Though that is exactly talking about nationalism that exists and operate within the country. Linkage to the expropriations. What is expropriations? That is declaring your assets in the name of the government. So if the government has a policy of nationalism, if the company is not working with the benefit for the benefit of the nation, for the benefit of the country, what happens? The government may declare its assets as expropriations. That is the possibility are there. So finally, we have concluded from the beginning what exactly the political scenario has an impact on the business decisions. Pre-election, post-elections, there is a change in the stock market because of the political instability, because the political environment decide the economic policies. The economic policy is decided by the political environment. That is why we have to come across with three things. One is political stability, government orientations, and nationalism. Three things we have to take into consideration when we wanted to understand the political legal environment. Then we talk about what are the governments that is talking about what is political and political risks. What is the political risks? The political risk is associated with blockage of funds and expropriations. Already I talked about the expropriations, domestication of investment already by the foreign government for a firm operating across national borders. So there is a possibility the host country reserves right to allowing access and also expropriation seat. Though through its policy, it can also scale and dimensions operations. It is also associated with blockage of funds, expropriations. That is the risk associated with the foreign companies, political risk associated with the foreign companies. Government has the power to declare its assets in the name of the country. So that is domestication of the investment, expropriations. The exporting firm also face political risks because government may puts restrictions, tax controls, price controls, exchange regulations. That is within the power of the government. So that is also that will be have a clear impact on the business that is operating in the outside markets. So that is why we have to understand what are the political risks associated when we are going to the outside or dealing with the international markets. The first political risk associated with the international market is the blockage of funds. The very closely associated with the subject of political is the temporary or permanently blocking the funds. Government may block your funds. Blockage of funds refers to the fact that although a business entity may own the funds but still hold property rights, it cannot export its earnings. That is, government can do that. That is exactly one of the risks is blockage of funds. Second risk is domestications. Domestication refers to the transfer of control of foreign investment to the national ownership. Government may transfer its control to the national ownership, bringing the firm's activity in the line with the national interest. It's a gradual encroachment. It is a step-by-step approach or gradual encroachment, which can also another risk associated with the political environment. Expropriation. Expropriation, most extreme cases, expropriations. What is that? That expropriation refer to the government's confiscation of property with or without proper reimbursement. Government can take over your property without any reimbursement. That is one of the expropriations. So three kinds of risks associated with the political risks associated with the international business. Then that is how can you access the political risks? The political risks can be accessed. If you access the political risks, you can have a proactive measures. Then your risks can be minimized, or you can have a systematic risks. Then it can be minimized. So assessment and management of political risks involve three basic steps. What are the steps? Recognizing the existence of political risks and accompanying consequences. What are the consequences? Already we have talked about the consequence. There is a blockage, maybe the blockage of funds, maybe expropriations, maybe domestications. That is the consequence may be there. That is the foreign companies, they must understand what are the consequences associated with the political risks. Creating a plan and policy ahead of the time to deal with such risks. I already talked about that. That is, unless you have proactive measures, unless you have think ahead, then exactly the risks cannot be minimized. Maximizing compensation in the event of expropriation. If expropriation happens, how can you maximize your compensation? These are the three things associated with the assessing the political risks. So that is why we have that is the it has been observed that international manager when entering to the market recognize the existence of political but refuse to give its required significance. That is why it is this is more of so because although existence of political has been widely accepted, definition of political does not explain whether such risk is country or farm specific. When you are talking about the political risk is two types. One is country risk, another is farm specific risks. That is country risks and farm specific risks. Understanding the international political risks, but also understand the political risk, but does not give the right significance to the political risks. That is why we have to assess the political risks. That one is country specific risks, another is farm specific risks. When you are talking about the country specific risks, the country specific risks is exactly we talk about the what is the current risks arising from doing business within a specific country. What are the risks? That is, we have to understand that. Then second one is current political system in existence. What is the current political systems? Third one is what are the encouragement that the business firm will reserve as a result of political activity. The three things we have to understand when you are talking about the country specific risks. The first one is risks arising from doing business within the specific country, current political risks, and long-term viability. And fourth one, what are the encouragement that the business. This revolves around the political history of the country, whether the country is a dictatorship, is a monarchy, or a parliamentary form. If it is a parliamentary form, what happens? The whether it is a one party or two party or multi party. If it is one party, then what happens? The one party, the decision taken by one party mostly what happens? The decision remains specific. That will be. But when it is multi-party or two-party, that is the maybe there is a political instability. Single party, two-party, or multi-party. Then what about the ideologies? What is the ideology? What is the ideology? Whether they do have a favorable attitude or unfavorable attitude for the foreign companies. If they have a unfavorable attitude, then exactly what happens? Then there is a problem for the foreign company. What if the very favorable attitude? Then exactly they allow the companies. So that is why political risks can be it can be risks can be studied by the different institutions. S&P they also have came with the data. They have analyzed what is the political risks. They give the report to the foreign companies. Moody's they also have their own research findings. But exactly the political risks associated with the particular countries. Many countries reduce risks by promoting. Another thing is that country risks can be minimized if the country have a favorable policy for the foreign companies. If they are promoting their country to get investment, FDI, foreign direct investment, then there is a country specific risks is minimized. So that is why we have to understand what are the country specific risks. The country specific risks is whether the party, the kind of party, political party, what about the attitude of the government toward the foreign companies, and what about the ideology of the political parties. The three things, if you understand, then the country specific risks can be minimized. Thing done. Then you talk about the farm specific risks. Even if the country specific risks is there, but still there is a that is even if you assess the country risks, but political risk does not manifest itself uniformly across farms. The companies have, even if also I have cited here one of the example is it has been observed that sometimes farms in the same country receive differential treatment. Your objective and the objective of the prevailing political party has to match. There is no alignment between the objective of yours and the political party, then you will be getting a differential treatment. So here, that is, even if two companies are operating, that is Seru Corporation, Marcona Mining Corporation, but the Peruvian government's attitude towards them, they have a expropriated, Seru was expropriated, but Marona Mining was encouraged. Why? Because the Marona is have a, that is the aligned with the country's objective. The political party's objective is aligned with the Marona's objective. Marcona's objective. That is why the Marcona Mining Corporation was encouraged, but whereas Cerro Corporation was expropriated. So that is why you have to understand what are the farm specific risks is there, because government has, the political party has differential treatment for different companies. So that depends on the, that is the one of the farm risks. Farm risks is farm specific political risks arises because of what? Because of the size and visibility, product handled attitude of the company. What is size of the product, size and visibility? If your company is going for a large scale of productions, to achieve economies of scale, I wanted to control the market. What will happen? The local players, definitely they will start the protest. They will encourage the government to take decisions in their favor. So if the company's operations or visibility is impacting the local players, then automatically that will happen. That is the local players, they will start protesting, and that is, and putting pressure on the local government to take decisions in their favors. That exactly you have to talk about the size and visibility. When we are talking about the product handled, what are the products? If you are dealing with some critical products, then there is a issue. There is a risk associated with that. If you are handling with, pharmaceutical product, defense equipments. So there is a sensitive areas or critical areas where, that is, if you are handling, then there is exactly the risk is there. That is, risk is from the farm itself. The firm itself, that risk is from the firm. Product handled by the MNC is critical to economic development or will create problems. If the product is developed, is a, benefit for the company or it is not a benefit for company, that is also you have to see. Then, since you are the guest for the host country, attitude of the company, guest of the country, that is, if you are not contributing for the development of the country, then exactly what will happen? Exactly you have a problem. The problem is created by the firm itself, because you are not, the problem has been created by, because you are not going to contribute anything for the betterment of the country. So these are to talk about the farm specific risks. When you talk about the product handled, already we have talked about the product handled, the product by handled by the MNC or international business also influence the attitude of a government. That is, if the product availability were subject of heated political debate, if it is sugar, salt, gasoline, public utilities, medicines, foodstuffs, then exactly you are getting the attention of the political parties. Do other industry depend on the production of the product? Cement, power, machine, tools, construction, that is also required. Is the product considered socially, economically essential? Key drugs, laboratory equipments. Is the product essential to agriculture industries? Does the product affect the national defense capabilities? Already we have talked about that. That is, if your product, the kind of product you are dealing, that is also has some risks associated with that. So that is why we have to understand the three aspect. One is, that is the size and visibility. If you are going for a large scale of productions, then there is issue here, because the local players, they will go for protest and pressurize the government to bring some policies which is favorable to them. If second one is kind of product you are handling, and third one is attitude of the company. If the attitude of the company is only to get profit, not to contribute for the nation development, then exactly what will happen? It is the risk associated with the farm itself. The two risks, one is country risks, second one is farm specific risks. When we are talking about the country risks is involves the political stability, the ideology of the government, and the policies of the government, and also we talk about the they have whether they have inward approach. Then that if you decide the country risks, but country risks can be minimized if you see the country has a favorable government, stable government, and they have a They are promoting for what investment. When you talk about the farm specific risks, farmer specific risks can be from size and visibility, product handled, attitude of the company. If the size and visibility, we say size and visibility, for the company is going for a large scale productions, then we have to have a, that is, they are getting protest from the local players. Product of the kind of product you are dealing with, that is also creates problems for you. And third one is attitude of the company. The three things that is we have to take into considerations. Done. I think it is okay now. Okay. Next one is product handled. Then we talking about the what are the checklist. What are the checklist we have to go for? The checklist we can go for. What is the checklist? The checklist is that is the five things. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The 9 things we are talking about. The you can have a checklist before you enter on the enter to any country. Whether the farm's own country's relationship with other countries, high, medium, low. If it is high, that is relationship is better, medium, moderate relationship, and low. Sensitive product or industry, sensitive, you are talking about defense, pharmaceutical, they are sensitive. Size, location of the operations, where it will be operated, whether it will operate in the host country or in the foreign countries. Visibility of the farmer, we have talked about the visibility. Host countries, political situations, already we have talked about that. Companies behavior, is it corporate citizen, is it a good corporate citizen, are they contributing really for the development of the country? That is, you have to think about contribute to host country, localization operations, and subsidiary dependence. If you are have a checklist before you enter, before you assessing the political risks associated with the particular country on the basis of high, moderate, and low. Then we have to manage the political risks, management of political risks. How can you manage the political risks? Political risks can be managed if you have a pre-investment planning and post-investment planning. Pre-investment planning, that is exactly before you go for the investment, you have to understand what are the risks, and also you have some backup plans for that. Then exactly your political risks can be managed. The insecurity arising out of the political risk, especially the risks of loss of investment, information in foreign lands, can be minimized through the proper management of political risks. The political management process can be undertaken either before the investment is made or after it is made. Thirdly, that is, if you are able to manage that is the risks before that, before you enter, then we talk about what is known as the pre-investment planning. Pre-investment planning, we talk about there are 4 planning. We talk about the avoidance, that is insurance, negotiating with the environment, structuring the investment. If you talk about the avoidance, by not undertaking, that is the method involves avoiding the political by not undertaking any foreign investment. You can avoid, you see there is a political risk is there, you do not want to enter, you can avoid not entering to the foreign investment, going for the foreign investment, then there is you can manage the political risk. Second one is insurance. So today, several business, non-business entities have emerged to underwrite the political risk insurance. You can go for the insurance. Political risk insurance, you can go for the political risk insurance. Where if there anything happens, you can get a insured amount from your insurance. Negotiating with the environment. Negotiating with the environment refers to the agreement drawn between the company and the ruling government. If there is a negotiation, amicable negotiation between the two parties, the political party and the company wanted to operate. That is, if there is a negotiation, then there is a possibility. It clearly states the responsibility undertaking of each party. It is known as the concession agreements. That can be possible. That can be your political risk can be minimized. Then that is through the treaty. Another one is restructuring the investment. Most of companies use this strategy today, which involves diversifying business. Because if you are depending on one country or you have presence in one country, if anything happens to that particular country, that is totally, creating problem for your company. That is why some companies, they have a they are diversifying investment in different countries. So anything happens to one country, so that can be managed by the other countries. Thus, Chrysler Corporation distributed its investment among Peru, Brazil, Argentina. 50% auto trucks, parts of the manufacture. That is how they have managed. So in that way also you can political risks can be managed. The first one is we have talked about the first one. We talk about the first one is avoidance. You can have avoidance nature. You do not want to enter because you have access to political risks. If you are entering to the particular country, then there is a problem. That is why you avoid not undertaking any foreign investment. Insurance, you can go for the insurance, political insurance, and you can get the damage. You can claim your money if anything happens wrong. Then one is talking about the negotiating the environment. You can have a negotiation with the political party, and both can be negotiated with each other so that you can have a concession agreement. And last is you talk about structuring the investment. If you are diversifying your investment, not confined to a particular country, you are diversifying your investment. That is how the company like Chrysler, they have diversified their investment. So your investment is diversified. That is another way of managing the political risk. Next, we talk about the post-investment planning, pre-investment planning, post-investment planning. Post-investment planning, which is basically once you enter the market, the political risk arises after the investment decision has been made, which means the firm is already committed. Therefore, the company must evolve strategies even after the investment decision has been made to minimize the losses, maximize the compensations. Already you have entered the market, then you have to evolve your strategy, that is through which your political risk can be managed. What are that we planned divestments, planned divestment. So if you are phasing out, from the investment in a phased manner, you are going out of the investment in a phased manner, then the possibility there is your risk can be minimized, or your compensation, you can get more compensation as compared to the investment. Sales of asset over a set period of time. If you are going for the planned divestment, set of assets over a set period of time, that is can be possible. Short-term profit maximizations, if you are going for short-term anticipating expropriations, if I have identified there is a possibility of expropriations, government may come with expropriations. If the government comes with expropriation, you will have severe damage. Before that, you go for that is short-term profit maximizations. Then third one is change of benefits and cost ratio. If the government decides the benefit and cost ratio of the company and sees there is more benefit the country is getting from the investment, then the political risk can be managed, comparative risk can be managed. If the political party, if the government see the company which is operating, they are giving more benefit as compared to the cost. Then next one is develop local stockholders. The stockholders are your local. So mostly that is the best way to enter into the particular country, because even if the country is expropriated, mostly the local people government will definitely give attention to the local players. So that is why the foreign companies, they will suffer less. And last is your adaptations. That is adaptation. We talk about that is exactly the manufacture within the country for the sale. That is, if you are adaptations, if you are manufacturing, if your policy are favorable, if you are working for the best, working for the development of the country, then your political risks can be managed. Planned divestment. This refers to the sale of assets in foreign country over a period of time in order to reduce the risks. Already we have talked about that phased manner. You will be selling all your assets so that your risks can be minimized. Short-term profit maximizations. If expropriation is necessary, there is always some advance notice. This strategy involves sacrificing long-term goals in favor of short-term objectives. In light of the developing circumstances, the farm got cost and increased profit margins to recover the initial investment. Next one is change of benefit and cost. Already we have talked about the government usually undertakes a cost benefit analysis. Government undertakes a cost benefit analysis of the advantage and disadvantage associated with the expropriations. If analysis can be skewed in favor of the farm by increasing cost versus benefit, expropriation decision may be delayed. Develop local stockholders. What Sears did in Latin America was make sure that most of the products were manufactured within the country for sale. In doing so, they promoted business for a specific product category by promising guarantee. They even help some of their business associates get off the ground. So these are the way you can minimize the political risks, management of the political risks. One is pre-investment, another is post-investment. Pre-investment involves avoidance, insurance, negotiations, negotiating the environment, structuring the investment. Whereas post-investment includes planned investment, divestment, short-term profit maximization, change of benefit and cost, develop local stockholders, and adaptations. That is the way you can manage the political risk. So that is why the how can you cope with the political risks? Negative approaches, positive approaches. You have both approaches, negative approach and positive approach. If you are control over the raw material, that is a negative approach. Control of transporters to international market, negative one. Control of external market citizens, license patent restriction under international laws. If you are doing so, then exactly it's a negative approach. Positive approach, you can go for a concession agreement, have a negotiation with the local government and have a concession agreements, joint venture with the government. So both the party will be involved. Joint venture with local banks, local sourcing of raw material. That is where you can a positive approach for reducing the political risk or coping with the political risk. Indirect approach can be insurance, capitalized firms, external financing. That is the way you can cope with the political risks. Then we talk about this is exactly we talk about the political risks. The political risks basically we have come across with political risks exactly what exactly we have talked about. The first one we talk about political environment. The political environment we talk about the political instability, government's orientation and nationalism. Then we talk about what is the possibility, the risks. What is the risks? Risks are blockage of funds, domestications and expropriations. Then we are talking about how can you assess the political risks. Political risks can be assessed if you have the that is if you have there are two kinds of risks. One is country specific risks, another is farm specific risks. Both can be you can assess the political risks. Then we are talking about the management of political risks. Management of political risks is pre-investment, which involves avoidance, insurance, negotiations, negotiating the environment, structuring the investment. Then we have the post-investment planning. We have planned divestment, short-term profit maximum, change of benefit and cost, develop local stakeholders and adaptation through which you can manage the political risks. This is all about the political risks. Then next component, that is your international marketing and the legal environment. When you talk about the legal environment, even if there are international laws that is which define the rules and principles that states and nations consider, but each nation has their own law. So that is why there is a dilemma. Which one to be followed? That is the first is the law belongs to individual nations. International law only exists to the degree that individual nations are willing to adopt the rights. If they are not ready to accept, the particular law, then exactly it cannot be possible. So that is why the companies who wanted to operate in the other markets or they wanted to come in the other market, they have to have the understanding of the legal aspects. If the legal aspect is not accepted or if the companies are going for, then that is exactly the possibility you will be thrown out of the country. The commercial law existing within the country includes not only each and every variable of the marketing mix, but also environment within the business operates. This has been a direct variant in the management of global marketing plan. International law can be defined as the rules principle that state nations, but still states and countries, they have their own law. So exactly the monitoring the legal environment is also essential, because why it is essential, in terms will come out of the article indicating areas where management should consider laws before framing their strategy. This includes, before they frame their strategy, they have to understand what are the laws prevailing in that particular country. If they do not consider, then exactly there will be mismatch. There will be no alignment. So what is that? That is exactly, you have to think about what is all about. They include watching out of the rules regarding the retail price maintenance, product quality, packaging. See, certain countries, that is exactly in our country, you have to keep, you have to put the picture of the baby in baby foods. You have to put the picture of the baby on the packet. But if it is Europe, they consider it is a what, it is the baby is inside. So packaging itself differs from different country to country. The brand name, we talk about Nova. Nova is a brand which means in other countries which does not move. It is automobile Nova company, and which meaning is altogether different in other countries. So then exactly you cannot use that name. So that is why the product quality, the packaging, after sales service commitments, price control. That is, we do have a AMC, that administrative price AMP, administrative price mechanism, where in certain products the government takes the decisions. So that is exactly, if you are going for that product, that you have to follow the price that is decided by the government. Property rights, which includes both movable and intellectual property, regulations, cancellation of agreements. So that is why you have to have a monitoring of the legal environment, because why? Now, if you do not monitor, whatever strategy you frame, that will not be going to get success. So that is why, what does it include? It includes the retail price maintenance, product quality, packaging, after sales commitment, price controls, property rights, regulations, and cancellation of agreements. The development and scope of international law, domestic marketers is aware of the jurisdictions of the legal system, the bearing it has to be in activities. But when he crosses the national frontiers to market or produce his products in a host country, the problem of legal system arises on two counts. There, every country has its own legal system. Already you have talked about that. Every country has their own legal system. The world's legal system are not harmonized, it is not homogeneous, identical. It is based on the opposing political philosophies. Each country has their own law. So that is why it is not, you cannot say the countries have the same or identical law. Same law is prevailing across all countries. So that is why the issues in the international legal environment, most issues in the legal environment, legal political environment center around the following: institutional environment, that is exactly made up the political, social, legal ground rules within which the global marketer must operate; property rights, patents and trademarks; taxations, what taxes scheme will be faced by the abroad; recourse, possibility and length of actions with the possibility of image damage necessitating arbitrations; movement of equity and expropriation threats upon necessitating protocol or the signing of trade framework agreements. These are the certain issues that is there in the international legal environment. Even if that exactly, even if there is some issues are there in the international and legal environment, already we have talked about the different institutions are there to look after the international trade. That is exactly we have talked about. We have talked about GATT, General Agreement and Tariff and Trades, World Trade Organization, regional agreements, trading blocks like NAFTA, SAFTA. They are there. The organizations who frame rules and regulation as far as international trade is concerned. So that is why there is any anything happens wrong with any country, the company can approach the particular country, or company can approach GATT, they can approach WTO, they can approach RTS or trading blocks to resolve the disputes. The individual countries' effort to regulate the international system includes United States International Trade Commission and the card systems. The WTO is a set of norms, procedures that members governments have accepted to create order, predictability in international trade relations. Similarly, other organizations, trade agreements are working out to ease barriers to trade, thereby promoting more of trade, mutual economic gains from it. Some of the important initiatives taken to remove those barriers are that is general. GATT is taking some initiative. They have some more frames, rules and regulations, WTO, regional trade agreements, then your trading blocks. NAFTA and SAFTA, they also have, you can approach them and you can come with some solutions because they are also dealing with the rules and they have also framework for dealing with the international trade. They have their own rules and regulations. If any country, any company fails in the country itself or is not getting the right justice, he can approach these international organizations. Then we talk about another term, we talk about Incoterms. Incoterms is nothing but it is a, what is that? That is in the Indian context, it is called as, that is it, you know, that is exactly what the cornerstone of international marketing, especially in the Indian context, is the product export. Consequently, the basic legal document that exporter is concerned with the international sales contract, exporter transaction necessarily involve the movement of goods from one country to another. So that is why international contract terms. In terms we talk about that is international contract terms. Are the series of international sales terms that divide the transaction cost and responsible between the buyer and seller. Incoterms loosely respond to the UN Convention on Contracts for the international sales of goods. So that is Incoterm. You can go for international contract terms where it is clearly specifies the rules and responsibility of each party, the buyer and sellers. What is the rules and regulations? Rules and what is the responsibility of each party as far as the Incoterm is concerned. So you can refer that. If you are going for international business or exporting, product export, or you are entering into the particular country, other countries, then exactly your Incoterms is closely correspond to union's conventions and contracts for the international sales of goods. What are Incoterms? Incoterms includes X works, FOB, free on board, FCA, free carrier, FAC, free alongside ship, CFR, cost and freight, CIF, cost, insurance and freight, CPT, carriage paid to, CIP, carriage and insurance paid to, DAF, delivery at frontier, DES, deliveries exceed, DEQ, delivered XQ, DDU, delivery duty unpaid, DTP, delivery duty paid. What is exactly all this? In X works transaction, goods are basically made available for pickup at the shipper's or seller's factory or warehouse. The delivery is accomplished when the merchandise is released to the consigned freight forwarders. So X workers transaction is exactly what that is available to pick up the shipper's or seller's factory or from the warehouse. FOB is on the other hand, FOB is commonly used and misused. Why commonly used and misused? Because FOB means that shippers or sellers use these freight forwards to move the merchandise to the port or designated point of origin. Though frequently used to describe inland cargo movements, FOB refers to the goods transported by ocean, inland, or waterways. What is that? FOB, you have to go for the FOB if your goods are transported through waterways or ocean. Then we are talking about the X works. In a X work transaction, goods are basically made available for pickup at the shipper's or the seller's factory or warehouse. Delivery is accomplished when the merchandise released the consigned freight forward. That is, everything is clearly defined there. That is why if you are going for the Incoterms, you have the everything is defined, who has roles and what are the responsibility of each party, that is clearly defined. FOB, free on board, one of the most commonly used and misused term. FOB means that shipper sellers use this freight forward to move the merchandise to the port designated point of origin. Though frequently used to describe inland cargo movements, FOB refers to goods transported by ocean and inland waterways. FCA, what is FCA? In this type of transaction, the seller is responsible for arranging transport. Who is responsible? The seller is responsible for transportation. he is acting at the risk expense of the buyer. Where FOB, the freight forwarded or carrier is choice of the buyer, but here FCA seller chooses to work with the freight forwarders or carriers. Here in case of FCA, the seller takes the responsibility, but if there's FOB, the buyer takes the responsibility. Free alongside ships, in this transaction, the buyer bears all transportation cost, risks of the loss of the goods. FSS requires the shipper or seller to clear goods for export, which is reversal from past practices. Companies selling on these terms will ordinarily use their freight forwarders to clear the goods for export. CFR is nothing but it is all known as CNF, formerly known as CNF or C&F, defines two distinct separate responses. One is dealing with the actual cost of merchandise. C is dealing with actual cost of merchandise, and other F refers to the freight charges to a predetermined destination point. It is the shipper's or seller's responsibility to get goods from their door to the port of destination. CIF includes, that is, this arrangement is similar to CFR, where but instead of buyer insuring the goods for the maritime phase of the shipper or seller will insure the merchandise. In this arrangement, the seller usually chooses the forwarder. Delivery as above is accomplished at the port of the destinations. This is exactly talk about the CIF. CPT is exactly what we talk about carriers paid to. CPT transactions, shipper and the seller have the same obligations, both have the same obligations. With the addition that the seller has to buy cargo insurance, naming buyer as the insured while the goods are in the transit. CIP is another term primarily used for multi-modal transport because it relies on the carrier's insurance. The shipper or the seller is only required to purchase minimum coverage. When this particular agreement is enforced, freight forwarders often act as the carrier. The buyer's insurance is effective when the goods are turned out over to the forwarder. Then the next one is DAF, delivery at frontier. Here the seller is responsible to hire a forwarder to take goods to the named frontier, which is usually border crossing point clear from the export. DES is all about, this is in this type of transaction, it is the seller's responsible to get the goods to the port of the destination or to engage the forwarder to move the cargo to the port of the destination. Delivery occurs at this time. Any destination charges that occur after the ship is docked are the buyer's responsibility. So we are from the Inco terms, we are clearly defining. In case of Inco terms, we are clearly defining what is the rules and regulations of rules and responsibility of both the party, that is the buyer and the seller. In case of ex-workers, who is the responsibility? Who has the responsibility? In case of FOB, who has responsibility? One of the most common misused terms, FOB. In case of ex-workers, that is exactly who is responsible here. In case of FOB, also we have FCA, also we have carried out these transactions. He is acting at the risk expense of the buyer, seller is here. FAS, the buyer bears all trans. FCA and FAS difference. FCA, the buyer is responsible. That is, he is acting the risk expense of the buyer. That is, the seller is responsible. But in case of FAS, what happens? In case of FAS, the buyer bears all transport cost. That is the difference between FCA and FAS. Did you get FCA and FAS? FCA, the seller takes all responsibility. FAS, the buyer takes all responsibility. Then we have talked about CFR, where C stands for cost of the merchandise, F stands for freight charges, both the responsibilities. In CIF, we talk about the cost and insurance rate. Here, you have taken the arrangement of CFR, but instead of the buyer insuring the goods for the maritime phase, the shipper or seller will insure the merchandise. In this arrangement, the seller usually chooses the forwarders. Delivery as above is accomplished at the port of the destinations. So these are the certain Inco terms we have come across. CPT, already we have talked about CPT. That is CPT transaction, shipper and seller have the same obligation as in the CIP. CIF, with the addition to that, seller has to buy cargo insurance naming the buyer. That is, it is mostly Incoterms are the used. The terms are used specifically to make it more what is more clearer, more specific, who is responsible for that particular work. So that defines, that is why Incoterms are, we have talked about the Incoterms, DAF and DES. DAF is here the seller's responsibility is to hire a puller to take the goods and names counters, and DES in this type of transaction, it is a seller's responsibility to goods to the port of the destination. So this is exactly, we talk about all the terms associate with the Incoterms. Okay, that is exactly we talk about the, then is exactly, let us talk about the, what is the, we talk about the legal environment, international legal environment, where that is, even you are operating in the international market or in other markets, though you have to understand the that is the country where you are operating, what are the legal aspects are there. Even if the international law is there, but you have to have a better understanding of the local laws, local rules and regulations. If you do not understand the local rules and regulations, then exactly there is a problem. So for that reason, that is why we have to talk about what are the areas you have to have our watch. You have to add some the retail price maintenance, product quality, packaging, even also advertising, price control. We have talked about APM, AMP, where government decides on product price. That is, you have to take into account. Then we have talked about even domestic market is aware of the jurisdictions of the legal systems, but the bearing is on its own activities, because every country has its own legal system. The world's legal system are not harmonized, are based on opposing political philosophies. There is no identical, no common law you can get across in the international trade. But if you fail to get justice in the national market, national level market or local market, you can approach the international bodies which are known as the, which are there to resolve the disputes between dispute of trade between the countries, that is known as GATT, WTO, and regional trading agreements or trade blocks. GATT is also able to solve, WTO, the World Trade Organization, regional trade blocks agreements. Also, the trading blocks like NAFTA and CETA, they are also responsible. Then we have talked about the Incoterms. Incoterms is nothing but we talking about the international contract terms. International contract terms, when you are going for the export, product export, or you are going for a contract, the different terms is we are using. When you are using different terms, where we are Incoterms clearly describes, clearly defined who is responsible, who is rules and responsibility is clearly defined in case of an Incoterms. What are the Incoterms? We have talked about the X-Works, FOBs, FCA, FAS, CFR, CIF, CPT, or SDAF, DES, DEQ, DDU, DPT, DDP, all are the Incoterms already. We have talked about that. So let us, before we wind up the class, let us have a discussion on the political and legal risks. The political risks is all about, that is, political risks you can see from the point of view the political stability, from the point of view the government orientation and the nationalism. From the three aspects you can judge the political risks. You can understand the political risks. Then we have talked about the political risk definitions. That is a possibility. They can put tariffs. They can they can go for the restrictions. They can hike the tax rates. They can control the price, exchange regulation. That all risks associated with the political. All the rest is the political risks. We can, that is exactly the consequence. There is a blockage of funds. They can block your funds, or there is a possibility of domestication of the your property. Expropriation, there is a total control, government's confiscation of property without the proper reimbursement. That is can be possible. Political definitions to have a assessing the political risks. We have to have context specific risks. There are two kinds of risks. One is country specific risks. Country specific risks, we are defining whether the country is the type of parties involved in the political decision. It's a single party, multi-party, or two-party systems, or what about the ideology? What is the inward? What is the attitude of the political parties? That is exactly we have to think about from that point of view. When we are talking about the farm specific risks, we are talking about the size and visibility, the product handled, attitude of the company. These are also there. When we are talking about the product handled, we have talked about what kind of product we are dealing with. We talked about that is before we enter, we have a checklist, systematic checklist to assess the political vulnerability. So if you are getting clear picture of the political risks, then exactly you can enter them. Then also we have management of political risks can be managed in two ways. One is pre-investment planning and post-investment planning. Pre-investment planning includes avoidance insurance, negotiating the environment, structuring the investment. Whereas in case of your post-investment planning, you have a planned divestment, short-term profit maximization, change of benefits, benefit cost ratio, develop local stockholders, adaptations. That is the post-investment planning. When you're talking about the international legal environment, even if you are dealing with the international market, but you have to understand the rules, regulation that is prevailing in a particular country, because that particular country decides. If you fail to get justice in a particular country, then there is other organizations are there are responsible, or you can go approach GATT, WTO, regional trading agreements, trading blocks to resolve your issues. We talk about the Incoterms, international contract terms, Incoterms, series of international sales terms. That is also we have talked about X, WAX, FOB. We have talked about all the things. That is how is clearly defined the different rules and regulation, responsibility of each party that we have talked in the terms of Incoterms. Then we have talked about this is the total things we have talked about. Hope this session is you have understood what are the political risks involved, how to assess the political risks, how to manage the political risks. If you wish to enter a particular country, and political risks can be minimized if you have a better understanding. So that is from the point of view a retail, from the point of view international marketer, it has immense significance. Immense significance because if you think this risk is a less risk, or it can be managed, then there is you are committing a mistakes there. For that reason, the marketer has to have a better understanding the political nitty-gritty, the political party who was involved in decisions, because indirectly it is that is the political parties, they frame economic policies, and economic policy decide the future of the company. That is why all international companies has to understand the political and legal aspect of the business when they wanted to enter to a particular country. With this, I am concluding the sessions. Thank you all.